You will be shocked to see Shanice's father. And Beyond the Gates detonates this bombshell with the kind of operatic flair American daytime television was built on, as the script peels back decades of secrets to reveal that the man who gave Shanice life is none other than Dante Green, a name whispered for years in hushed tones around Fairmont Crest, a man associated with power, controversy, and a legacy that has quietly shaped the lives of nearly every major character without them even realizing it, because the episode opens deceptively calm with Shanice attempting to settle into her whirlwind new marriage, still reeling from how quickly everything moved with Ted, still feeling the weight of Nicole's icy shock and the town's side-eye, when an anonymous envelope appears at her door containing an old photograph, yellowed at the edges, showing her mother years younger, standing far too close to a man whose face is partially obscured but unmistakable in posture and presence, a man long time. Viewers immediately clock as Dante Green, and from there the hour spirals into a relentless emotional descent as Shanice confronts her mother, who first denies everything, then deflects, then finally breaks down in tears, confessing that Dante Green was the great love of her life and the greatest mistake she ever made, explaining that Dante was dangerous, ambitious, and ruthless even back then, already entangled in backroom deals and political maneuvering that made him both magnetic and terrifying. And when she discovered she was pregnant, she knew that tying a child to Dante would doom that child to a life of manipulation and shadow wars. So she ran, changed names, built a new life, and buried the truth so deeply she convinced herself it would never resurface. But Beyond the Gates thrives on the idea that blood will always call to blood, and the shock doesn't stop with Shanice learning the truth, because the revelation sends shockwaves through Ted, who realizes in an instant that his impulsive marriage has placed him squarely in Dante Green's orbit, a realization that curdles his romantic high into raw fear, especially when he remembers every rumor he's ever heard about Dante's enemies mysteriously losing fortunes, families, or their lives, and the script smartly intercuts Shanice's devastation with scenes of Dante himself, finally appearing on screen in a chilling, controlled introduction that justifies years of build-up, as he watches Shanice from a distance at a charity gala, his expression unreadable, his eyes calculating, revealing through a quiet conversation with an associate that he has known about Shanice for some time and has been waiting for the right moment to step forward, because Dante Green does nothing impulsively, and the audience quickly understands that this is not a man seeking reunion out of love, but a strategist seeing a daughter as both vulnerability and leverage, which becomes even more explosive when Nicole learns the truth and realizes that the young woman she has resented, threatened, and dismissed is the daughter of the one man she has feared since her own past entanglement with Fairmont Crest's darker power structures, triggering Nicole's panic as she recalls how Dante once helped finance Ted's early ventures, a connection Ted never fully disclosed, making Nicole question whether her entire marriage and divorce were manipulated from the start, while Bill, sensing opportunity as always, begins quietly probing what this means legally, politically, and financially, because Dante Green's bloodline changes inheritance equations, alliance maps, and the balance of power in town, and the script layers in delicious irony as Danny, still grappling with her own betrayals and returns to the past, recognizes that Shanice is being pulled into a legacy she never asked for, drawing parallels between cycles of secrecy that Beyond the Gates uses as its thematic backbone, all while Shanice herself oscillates between rage, grief, curiosity, and a terrifying spark of recognition as she sees pieces of herself reflected in Dante's steely composure, his refusal to apologize, his insistence that power is the only true protection, leading to the episode's centerpiece confrontation in which Dante finally reveals himself to Shanice in a private meeting arranged under false pretenses, where he confirms everything without warmth or shame, telling her plainly that he stayed away not because he didn't care, but because he cared enough to let her grow up unclaimed, unweaponized, a justification that enrages Shanice and yet leaves her shaken because she senses the twisted sincerity beneath it, and this scene becomes a masterclass in soap writing as Shanice demands answers about who she is now, whether her marriage was a mistake, whether her life is about to be swallowed whole, And Dante responds with the chilling promise that being his daughter means doors will open and enemies will close in, but that he will not force her loyalty, only offer protection she didn't know she'd need, an offer that Ted overhears part of, igniting his own confrontation with Dante that crackles with masculine power struggle as Dante subtly reminds Ted that everything he is could be taken away just as easily as it was built, while Nicole watches from the shadows realizing that her jealousy of Shanice was misplaced. Because the real threat has always been the men who pull strings behind the scenes, and as the episode barrels toward its final moments, the fallout spreads like wildfire, with Shanice questioning her own quick marriage in light of family secrets resurfacing, Jacob recognizing Dante's name from old corporate files tied to Naomi's healthcare battles, and even Peaches hinting that Leslie's true identity may be connected to Dante's network, weaving the reveal into nearly every ongoing storyline so it feels both shocking and inevitable, culminating in a final devastating beat where Shanice stands alone, holding the photograph again, this time seeing not just a secret, but a legacy staring back at her, as Dante watches from afar and murmurs that the gates are finally open, a line that lands like a thesis statement for the entire series, confirming that Beyond the Gates has just irrevocably changed its game by making Shanice the daughter of Dante Green, a reveal that reframes past conflicts, supercharges future ones, and promises that nothing, no marriage, no alliance, no secret, will ever be safe again, and as if that revelation alone weren't enough to rattle the foundations of Beyond the Gates, the script keeps pressing harder, digging deeper into the emotional wreckage left behind by Dante Green's emergence as Shanice's father, because the true shock isn't just who he is, but what his presence unlocks in everyone else. Starting with Shanice, waking the next morning after the confrontation in a cold sweat, realizing that for the first time in her life her past no longer feels fixed but rewritten, every childhood memory now suspect, every sacrifice her mother made suddenly heavier, and this internal unraveling is mirrored by her mother's own collapse as she admits to a trusted confidant that she didn't just leave Dante to protect Shanice, but to save herself, revealing that Dante once asked her to choose between love and silence, between truth and survival, a choice that has haunted her for decades. And when Shanice overhears part of this confession, it adds another layer of betrayal, because now she must grapple with the idea that her life has been shaped not just by one man's ambition but by one woman's fear, and the script smartly refuses to make any of it clean or simple, instead letting the mess linger as Shanice lashes out at Ted, accusing him of marrying her without truly knowing her, while Ted fires back that she didn't know herself either, exposing cracks in their rushed union that Nicole can't help but notice with a complicated mix of guilt and grim satisfaction, especially as Nicole begins connecting dots from her own past, remembering odd favors granted, threats quietly neutralized, moments when Dante Green's invisible hand may have guided her life, without her consent, leading to a powerful scene where Nicole confronts Dante directly, demanding to know how much of her misery traces back to him, and Dante, chillingly calm, admits that he doesn't remember every consequence of his actions. Because power requires distance, a line that sends Nicole spiraling as she realizes she has been fighting ghosts instead of the architect himself, while elsewhere Bill senses the shifting winds and starts maneuvering aggressively, proposing alliances and contingency plans under the guise of protection, but clearly salivating at the chance to either align with or undermine Dante, depending on which path offers the greatest advantage. And the town itself begins to feel different, heavier, as whispers spread and old enemies resurface, with characters like Danny and Ander recognizing patterns they've lived before, cycles of secrecy and return that Beyond the Gates treats almost like fate, and the script cleverly layers in thematic echoes as Jacob warns Naomi that Dante Green's involvement could jeopardize everything they've fought for medically and legally, raising the horrifying possibility that Naomi's health crisis may intersect with Dante's influence in ways no one anticipated. While Peaches drops another cryptic hint suggesting that Dante's network extends far beyond what anyone realizes, implying that Leslie's true identity, Doug's survival, and even Tomas's shocking words to Kat might all orbit the same dark center, making the reveal feel less like a twist and more like the unlocking of a master door, and through it all Shanice remains the emotional core, torn between rejecting Dante outright and acknowledging the undeniable pull of blood, especially when she witnesses firsthand how people defer to him, fear him, and bend around him, prompting her to question whether the strength she's always prided herself on is truly hers or inherited, a fear Dante exploits subtly by telling her she has his instincts but her mother's conscience, framing it as both compliment and warning. And the episode's final stretch leans hard into tragic inevitability as Ted realizes that loving Shanice now means standing between her and a man who destroys obstacles without blinking, forcing Ted to confront whether his love is strong enough to withstand that pressure or whether, like so many before him, he will eventually fold, and the closing montage drives the point home with brutal efficiency. Nicole staring at old photos and recognizing faces she once trusted now tainted by Dante's shadow, Bill making a call that suggests a preemptive strike, Danny lighting a candle for the past she can't escape, and Shanice standing at the edge of Fairmont Crest, looking out over a city that suddenly feels like a battlefield, while Dante Green, ever the puppet master, watches from his office, satisfied not because he has reclaimed a daughter, but because the truth is finally doing what it always does in Beyond the Gates, tearing everything open, leaving viewers with the unmistakable promise that this reveal is not the climax but the beginning of a far darker, far more dangerous chapter where love, loyalty, and legacy will be tested like never before, and even after that seismic shift, Beyond the Gates refuses to let the dust settle, instead widening the blast radius of Dante Green's revelation until it consumes every corner of the canvas, because once the truth is out, the real drama becomes who chooses to use it, who tries to bury it again, and who gets crushed in the process. And the script leans into that tension immediately as Shanice begins noticing subtle changes in how people treat her, the half-second pauses before responses, the careful recalibration of tone, the way doors that were once politely closed now swing open with unsettling ease, forcing her to confront the horrifying realization that her identity has been upgraded without her consent, and this loss of agency becomes her central conflict as she lashes out at anyone who tries to help, including Ted, who insists they need a strategy. A word that makes Shanice recoil because she doesn't want her life to become a chessboard the way Dante's always has been. Yet the show smartly complicates Ted's position by revealing that he has already been approached by one of Dante's rivals, a shadowy figure from Fairmont Crest's past who sees Shanice as the perfect pressure point, confirming that Dante's promise was not a threat but a prophecy, while Nicole, spiraling between fear and resolve, begins quietly gathering information of her own, determined not to be blindsided again, leading to a chilling discovery that Dante Green has contingency files on nearly everyone in town, including secrets that predate the series itself, reframing years of storylines as dominoes set up long before the audience ever knew his name. And this meta layer of storytelling gives the reveal its real power, because it transforms Beyond the Gates from a collection of explosive secrets into a saga about legacy and consequence, as characters realize they have been living inside someone else's long game, and nowhere is that more apparent than in Shanice's evolving dynamic with her mother, whose guilt metastasizes into desperation as she begs Shanice not to meet with Dante again, admitting that the man Shanice sees now is softer only because time has sharpened his patience, not dulled his cruelty. But Shanice, finally asserting herself, refuses to live in fear, declaring that if Dante Green is her father, she will define that relationship on her own terms, a declaration that would feel empowering if it weren't undercut by the audience's growing understanding that Dante respects strength most when it can be molded, and the script heightens that unease by giving Shanice small, unsettling wins, problems resolved with a phone call, conflicts evaporating after Dante casually intervenes. Each victory leaving a sour taste as Shanice wonders what invisible price is being paid, while Bill's machinations reach a fever pitch as he positions himself as a necessary intermediary between Dante and the town, selling influence as safety and exposing his own moral rot in the process, and Danny, watching all of this unfold, becomes an unexpected voice of clarity, warning Shanice that power rarely announces when it turns you into the villain of someone else's story. A warning Shanice takes seriously just as she learns that Dante has quietly arranged a trust in her name, one so vast it threatens to erase her independence entirely, triggering a confrontation that strips away any remaining illusions as Shanice accuses Dante of trying to buy her, and Dante responds with brutal honesty, telling her that money is merely a tool and that love, loyalty, and morality are luxuries people in his world cannot afford, a worldview Shanice rejects outright. Yet the sting of recognition lingers, because she has already felt how intoxicating protection can be, and the episode closes its next act with a masterstroke of irony as Ted, pushed to his limit, issues an ultimatum not just to Shanice but to himself, realizing that if he stays, he must accept living in Dante's shadow, and if he leaves, he may become collateral damage anyway, leaving viewers breathless as Beyond the Gates makes clear that Dante Green's introduction is not about one shocking paternity reveal but about redefining the rules of the entire series, where love is leverage, truth is currency, and family is both sanctuary and weapon, ensuring that every step forward from this moment on will be haunted by one inescapable fact. The gates are open, and Dante Green is finally walking through them, and just when it feels like Beyond the Gates has pushed the Dante Green revelation as far as it can go, the script finds a way to twist the knife even deeper. Because the real devastation isn't delivered through explosions or confrontations, but through the slow, merciless erosion of trust, as Shanice begins to realize that knowing who her father is means never knowing who anyone else truly is again, a paranoia that seeps into every interaction, every smile now suspect, every offer of help potentially purchased, and this psychological shift is where the writing becomes almost cruel in its precision, showing Shanice second-guessing her instincts, replaying conversations from years ago and wondering who knew, who guessed, and who stayed silent, while Dante, ever the patient architect, does nothing overtly threatening, instead allowing the chaos to bloom on its own, confident that truth destabilizes more efficiently than force, and this confidence terrifies Nicole most of all, because she recognizes it, having lived under similar pressure in her own past, prompting her to make a reckless move by confronting Bill about his sudden interest in protecting Shanice, only to realize too late that Bill has already chosen his side, not out of loyalty to Dante, but out of loyalty to power itself, admitting that Fairmont Crest has always belonged to men like Dante and that survival means adapting, not resisting, a speech that leaves Nicole shaken and furious, while Ted's world continues to collapse in quieter, more intimate ways as he watches Shanice drift, not toward Dante exactly, but toward a version of herself that no longer needs him in the same way, forcing Ted to confront the brutal truth that love doesn't always conquer legacy, and sometimes it's crushed beneath it, a realization underscored by a haunting scene in which Ted overhears strangers speaking Shanice's name with awe instead of affection, and understands that she has become a symbol, not just a woman, and symbols don't get happy endings. Meanwhile, Shanice's mother, unraveling under the weight of everything she hid, finally reveals the darkest secret of all, that Dante didn't simply let her leave, but was forced to, because someone even more dangerous wanted Shanice gone before she was ever born, a revelation that reframes Dante not as the ultimate villain, but as a survivor of a larger, unseen war, expanding the mythology of the show and hinting that Dante's obsession with control may be rooted in a single moment of powerlessness, a nuance that complicates Shanice's hatred and makes her fear that understanding him might be the first step toward becoming him. And the script brilliantly mirrors this internal conflict with external consequences as a sudden scandal breaks involving one of Dante's known associates, dragging Shanice's name into headlines she never sought, testing her resolve as she's forced to choose between issuing a denial that would require Dante's legal muscle or standing alone and risking total annihilation, a choice that encapsulates the central question of Beyond the Gates. How much of yourself are you willing to sacrifice to survive? And as characters like Danny, Jacob, and Naomi react to the scandal in ways shaped by their own histories of secrecy and loss, the show weaves Shanice's story into the larger tapestry of Fairmont Crest, making it clear that Dante Green's bloodline isn't just a personal shock but a narrative linchpin tying together past, present, and future. And the final moments of this stretch land with devastating restraint as Shanice meets Dante one last time and tells him she will not accept his money, his protection, or his name, only the truth, demanding that if she is to live with his legacy, she deserves honesty without calculation. And Dante, for the first time, looks genuinely unsettled, admitting that truth without power is dangerous, but agreeing anyway. A concession that feels less like surrender and more like the opening move of a deeper game, leaving Shanice standing at the threshold of a life irrevocably altered, aware that she has inherited not just a father but an enemy list, not just a name but a destiny she must now fight to redefine. As Beyond the Gates cements this storyline as a turning point that transforms shock into tragedy, tragedy into choice, and choice into consequences that will echo through every storyline still to come.